Farah Pahlavi's book is called An Enduring Love. In 1959, when she was 21, she married the former Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. During her 20-year reign as Empress, she worked to boost women's rights, eradicate illiteracy, and establish a forum for the arts. In 1979, she and her husband were forced to flee their country after the rise of a new Islamic republic led by the Ayatollah Khomeini. Her new book, as I said, is called An Enduring Love, and it talks about her life with the Shah, and I am pleased to have her here to talk about that. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell me when you first met him.
Well, the first time I met him from close was in Paris when I was a student of architecture, and I was very proud, of course, to have been introduced to him. But really, it was our real encounter was in Tehran when I returned for summer vacation in '59.
And you were how old?
I was exactly 20 years old then.
And how did you see him then?
I was invited to see his daughter from the previous marriage, and I was delighted to meet her, and then the king arrived. And I said, well, it's an accident, it's normal, then the father comes and visits her daughter. And then he really put me at ease and started to ask me questions about my student life and the students abroad. And that's how it all started.
And then how long was it before
it was
you knew this was serious?
August that we met, and close to October I realized that it was not an accident, because we met several times afterwards.
Yeah.
And we spoke, and he took me around, that something serious is happening.
What kind of man did you marry?
I had always an admiration for him as a king and as a patriot. He was really someone who loved his country and its people, and humanly he was such a civilized man, so human, so just, so affectionate, and a loving husband and a loving father.
In 1967, you were crowned queen. Now, how long had you been married to the Shah before you were crowned queen?
We married in 1959.
So 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did it take 8 years to crown you queen?
Because it was his own coronation also. He always said, I don't want to be crowned before my people are going through development and their condition of living is better. And then again, the crowning the queen, for me, as I always said, when he crowned me, as if he had crowned all the women of Iran.
You represented all the women of Iran, you think?
Yes, yes, and I think many Iranian women felt the same way. Of course, in our past history, thousands of years ago, we had women as reigning queens, but it didn't happen all these years.
Was it the happiest time of your life after when you were before the revolution, when you were in Iran, when he was in power, and all Jimmy Carter and all the other presidents would come, and all those Americans who had a relationship with Iran would come to Iran and celebrate it, and you had the power of oil and all of that?
You know, beside my own happiness, my personal happiness as a wife, as a mother, and as a person who was active in so many activities, it was the happiness of a country going forward to development, to modernity, to progress, to compare the condition of Iran and the Iranians 25 years ago. And unfortunately, these people came and promised paradise, and they opened the door to hell. And to me, what has happened in Iran is really a catastrophe with mythological dimension.
Mythological damage?
Mythological dimension.
What's the mythological damage?
Because it's so huge, it's so horrible, that I cannot comprehend or accept that a country like Iran, which was one of the cradles of civilization, we had such good relations with the rest of the world, the area was stable, we had peace, the country was developing, modernizing, going towards progress, and now it has become the center of international terrorism and religious fanaticism.
So how do you explain the fact that the Islamic Revolution was successful?
It has many...
When your husband had all that army that he had.
Well, it has different causes, interior and exterior. Of course, there were shortcomings of mistakes committed, but we could have or should have handled or addressed the problems better.
Which problems?
Well, of different dissatisfaction of people for different things. Like, for instance, when you put one foot forward, there are also difficulties which arise, but you have to address them.
And do you think he failed to address them perhaps because for whatever reason, and that therefore it sowed the seeds for the revolution?
Well, let us not forget the context of that period. It was during the Cold War.
Right.
Our big neighbor, the Soviet Union, always dreamt to reach the warm waters of the Persian Gulf. We had all the communist groups inside of Iran, and we were victim of international terrorism because three prime ministers were assassinated twice, attempted the life of my husband, and some American citizens, officers were killed in Iran. So there were these groups who were very attached to ideology of communism, and also the other side, the fundamentalists, that they have shown what they wanted for Iran, and they were unhappy for development, progress, and women's rights. So all that gave together, and also, unfortunately, all the pressure from outside that encouraged opposition and, in a way, discouraged the government. But again, what I want to say, with your permission, is this is the past. We have to look.
I'm going to move towards it, but there is too much history here for me not to talk to you about it, because you were part of that history.
Yes.
I promise to get to the future. All right. And the book, because the book is about a love story, as you say, an enduring love. My life with the Shah, and we're talking about your life with the Shah, as you know. And we'll talk about your son in a moment. But let me just say, when did you know it was over, that you were going to have to flee the country? Did you know a week before, 2 weeks before? Did you all have an inevitability about it?
Yes, I will answer to this question. But enduring love means at the same time love of my husband and love of my country,
right. Okay.
Iran. Almost 10 days, a week before we left, we were discussing that maybe we have to leave. Maybe it will calm down the situation, this mass hysteria, just a week before.
How difficult and how disappointed and frustrated and angry was he about the fact that he had a hard time finding a place to live out the rest of his life? And it only was the intervention of people like David Rockefeller and others that it happened.
Well, all this time, I always say, since he was a very good pilot, he was really looking at the world from another level. I think the pilots see the world differently. He never complained. And
even when he was suffering from cancer?
No, because although humanly it was very hard to understand, but in politics, governments are for their political interest and economical interest. And the regime had changed. But at the same time now, I think of President Sadat, to whom and to the Egyptian, which I will always remain grateful.
Because they allowed him to come to Egypt,
and he showed also that even in politics, moral values count.
Sadat did.
Yes.
His body is still in Egypt, is that correct?
It's still in Egypt.
The tomb is in Egypt.
In Egypt.
Yeah. Well, do you visit Egypt?
Every year I go to Egypt to visit his tomb for the commemoration, and it's a pleasure for me always to go back to Egypt, and always with the hope that one day we could take him back to our own country.
You would like to take him back to Tehran?
Yes.
Do you think that will ever happen?
I think it will. I have confidence in the future of Iran. Iran is important, not only for the Iranians today, but for the peace and stability in the Middle East and for the rest of the free world. And I have confidence in Iranian women, in the youth of Iran. And also they have shown lately after the so-called elections that they are rejecting the system.